Welcome to Twin Takes. I'm Abomination, or A-Bom, here with my twin brother, the Maestro. Maestro, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, I have 5 things MMA fighters can learn from pro wrestlers.
All right, let's get at it.
First item on the list, cut a promo.
Okay, that sounds good. And a promo in wrestling jargon, of course, is when a wrestler gets on the microphone, he sells himself, he sells the storyline, he riles up the crowd, or whatever, right?
Yeah, whatever he needs to do to promote himself, promote the business, promote the storylines. So, yeah, basically, whenever a microphone is put in front of you, it's an opportunity to do that, to sell yourself, to sell your brand.
Sure.
Pro wrestlers build their entire careers around this, whereas you see a lot of professional fighters who see themselves as more of a blue-collar worker, right? They see it as a trade. They come in, they punch the clock in the gym, right? They put in the work, they do the fight, they get the paycheck. And I think a lot of them are just too complacent to follow that pattern, and that kind of holds them back from breaking out. If you look at the biggest stars the UFC has produced, really you would say Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, right? 2 of them are pro wrestlers, and then Conor McGregor, who, let's be real, he's more like a pro wrestler than anybody else in the game.
Yeah, right. You could say Conor McGregor cuts promos, and even guys like Colby Covington cuts promos.
And Colby Covington, I mean, arguably a guy who gets more attention than his talent. He's a talented guy. He's a good fighter. But for a period there, the attention he was getting was like far and away above what other people were getting, because he knows how to create a character and market it. You know, whether you like the character or hate it, it drew eyeballs.
It gets attention, yeah. But Colby is a great fighter.
He's a good fighter. He's an elite fighter. He's in, the top 1% of fighters in the entire world. But for that period of time there, he was getting, McGregor level, not quite McGregor, but, that stratosphere at least, in the same ballpark as, like, some of the biggest stars in the game. And he's never even held a real championship in major MMA. He was an interim champ, and that's a great accomplishment. Like I said, a top 1% fighter. But, he's not a top 0.0001% fighter,
Okay. Yeah, and I think I can agree with you on that point. As an interim champion, you're near the top of the game, right? But that's not the absolute top of the game. Whereas, yeah, I can see what you're saying, where he got some attention.
But the money and the eyeballs were as if he's on top of the game.
Right. So I think we're largely in agreement regarding this first point about cutting a promo. So what's next? What else can MMA fighters learn from pro wrestlers?
So next I have call-outs. That's a little bit different from cut a promo. Cut a promo is aimed at growing your brand and attracting eyeballs. Call-out is about what goes on in the octagon, or more specifically, what will go on in the octagon. It's about calling out your next fight and keeping yourself moving up that ladder.
Yeah, I just want to interject here. I can already tell I'm in agreement with you. This is a big pet peeve of mine. Anytime somebody wins a fight, they get to talk to Joe Rogan. I agree. You have to say a name.
I'll take on whoever Dana puts in front of me.
Worst answer.
Right? It makes me want to pull my hair out. They're giving you an opportunity. Like take a swing. Like really, you need to aim for more of a realistic fight normally. But, I mean, you can swing for the fences, too. And no matter what you do, just as long as you name somebody higher than you in the rankings, or somebody who's well respected, you can't go wrong. Just name somebody.
Yep, I'm 100% with you on that. So on to point number 3. Hopefully something with which I can disagree.
We'll see. Entrances. How cool would MMA be with full-on wrestling-style entrances?
Uh-oh, don't tell Deontay Wilder that.
See, and I'm not even talking about, boxing-style entrances. They're moving in that direction somewhat. You mentioned Deontay Wilder, Canelo and Tyson Fury. There's a lot of guys who do some
pageantry.
Pageantry, that's a good word for it. They do some pageantry with their entrances. But I'm talking beyond that. I'm talking a real wrestling style entrance. I'm talking pyro that's synced with the music. I'm talking about like movements or gestures that are synced with the music.
Okay.
A costume that fits with a gimmick, maybe.
As long as it's not too heavy.
As long as it's not too heavy. But ultimately, it's a show. People are paying money to see a show. And not everybody is really there for the sport, for the athletic competition. They do want an element of pageantry. And let's be real, who doesn't like pyro?
Well, of course. Personally, I'm a big Cody Rhodes supporter, so...
So this isn't one you could disagree with?
No, it's not. Let's see what you've got for point number 4.
Transitioning careers. You don't necessarily have to be a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kind of guy, a Conor McGregor who makes $1 billion on whiskey.
You can be the Miz
kind of guy. Yeah, sure. You could be the Miz. You could be, any number of people. Ronda Rousey went to pro wrestling, right? Tyron Woodley is going to box Jake Paul later this summer, and he's probably going to make more for that fight. It could be more than... I haven't seen numbers on this. It could be more than he made in his entire UFC career, though, right?
Yeah, and the same thing applies to, like, Conor McGregor did a boxing match. Obviously, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren. So yeah, this seems to be a good financial decision for these fighters. Absolutely.
And then, even going back, there was a film series. What was it? The Expendables. They had, I think, Ronda Rousey, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell. Like, they had, like, several MMA people. We've also seen Gina Carano. Like, right? There's several MMA people who have transferred to Hollywood, usually in, like, action-type roles, where they can use their martial arts skills. But, I mean, really, these guys can't be afraid to step out of their comfort zone, to step out of the cage and... basically cash in on themselves.
Let me push back on you a little bit here. Wrestlers have a particular skill set that easily transitions from industry to industry, right? That's fair to say. A lot of MMA fighters, of course, don't have that same skill set. Like Colby Covington we talked about earlier. He cuts promos. Frankly, they're often cringy, right? He's not like a master on the microphone or anything. And I feel like that's how a lot of fighters are.
I would say most of the people I named there are people with that skill set that you're referring to. So, I mean, obviously you are limited in what you can do based on your skills and things like that. Tyron Woodley, though, was a name that came up. He doesn't really have that other skill, right? He doesn't have, a Hollywood skill set that I know of, or,
Right, and when you mentioned Tyron Woodley, it just popped into my head. He also did that Titan Games thing, right? That's a way to expand your brand.
Well, he didn't look very good on that.
No, he didn't, but it is expanding your brand. He's doing the boxing thing, too. I think this is totally to what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I do see what you're saying with the skill set. But I would say, generally speaking, if you're a known name, you can find something outside of MMA that's probably going to pay better, and might set you up for other opportunities down the line.
Okay, Maestro, on to point number 5 here. What can MMA fighters learn from pro wrestlers?
Yeah, this last point here, make it accessible to kids. Wrestling is huge with kids, right? John Cena, Hugger Bailey... right, was over when she was a babyface, when Roman Reigns was a babyface. All the kids were all about Roman Reigns. Wrestling is specifically marketed to children, in a number of ways. John Cena, I think, is probably the best example that comes to mind. Whereas MMA, it kind of started in this dark place, right? It's cage fighting, right? It's a violent thing. There's a lot of profanity on the pay-per-views. And they start late, right? These pay-per-views on Saturday nights, I'm here on the East Coast, they go to 1 a.m. or so. There's not any kids staying up to watch that, or relatively few. And really, it doesn't have to just lean into the blood sport kind of thing, right? This is a real sport. It's real athletic competition. It can be marketed to kids.
Yeah, I do agree with you in a lot of ways. One area, one way in which I want to push back on you, though, do we want mixed martial arts to become this celebrity-style boxing? Right? This Jake Paul stuff and all that, that's being marketed to kids and teenagers or whoever watches that, whoever are Jake and Logan Paul fans nowadays, right? A lot of teenagers, a lot of kids, and they get really into this, and they be saying things like Jake Paul is the best boxer in the world, things like that. So do we want to do that to mixed martial arts?
So that specific phenomenon you're talking about with like the social media boxing and stuff, like that's a little bit different of a force, I think. What I'm talking about is more like baseball. Like, right, like okay. NBA games, basketball, like, right, maybe you give away things for the kids, maybe you, have events on earlier, events that aren't on the other side of the world with, lower tier cards, real events, like, on, like, a weekend afternoon.
Here, let me compare MMA to baseball real quick here. Baseball, I don't think anybody watches it because it's exciting or whatever. I mean, we all love the playoffs and whatnot, but throughout the regular season, it's more of a grind, and people pay attention, I think, oftentimes because they played the game as a kid and things like that. They're intimately familiar with it. And I mean, maybe kids can almost see themselves out there, trying to make a play or whatever. Well, a lot of kids wrestle growing up. This MMA stuff is completely foreign. I mean, besides the wrestling aspect for some kids. So how do you think it could appeal to kids?
Well, I think that there are a number of different paths that lead to MMA, and I think that's one of the great things that's so unique about it. We're losing a little bit of that as MMA becomes kind of its own like brand of martial arts, right? But still, like everybody, at least almost everybody, has like a prior foundation in, you mentioned wrestling, but I mean, how many kids are in Taekwondo, karate?
Even boxing in large northern cities, I guess you could say boxing is a big thing.
Yeah, urban areas, there's a lot of boxing, and even, I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms are all over the place now, right? Like, a lot of people are into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just, like, as a martial art, just in the same way that people have traditionally just done, like, karate and Taekwondo. So I do think that there is a basis for the kids to go in. Like, I see what you're saying, where it's not exactly the same as the underlying discipline or whatever, but I don't see that as an obstacle. I actually see that as an opportunity to bring more people in.
Well, it's a very interesting topic. That's all the time we're going to have to discuss it for today. Maybe some people out there can chime in on social media. Let us know what you think about these 5 points.
Thanks for tuning in. For A-Bom, I'm the Maestro. We'll catch you guys next time on Twin Takes.